Hello guys, welcome to the Eat Like Ruby podcast. I am here today with an unexpected guest.
Here I am.
Guys, I am here today with podcast producer, podcast studio owner, Sophie. I feel like OGs will be like, shit, Soph's back. And I feel like it'd nearly be like a year anniversary.
Yeah.
From the last time you were on.
Completely unplanned as well.
Completely unplanned. So guys, I walked in today to do a solo ep on mindset. Today we're going to talk all about mindset, and Soph thought I had a guest. So she had a double headphone set up and then she was packing it up, and then I'm like, do you want to jump on and have a mindset chat with me? And here we are.
I know.
Love it. I feel like it's cool that you're here because I feel like a lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about you will resonate with, or you'll be familiar with, whether it's with nutrition and training or more so like just with business, with life, whatever. A lot of just thoughts, patterns, habits, emotional intelligence, stories, all the things.
Yeah.
We see it come up with nutrition, training, business, life, everything in between.
Totally.
So I just feel like you're just going to jump in. We have absolutely no real structure for today. It was just going to be me firing off. And now we've got Soph here. I feel like it's just going to be both of us jumping in with something to say on each little like topic we get to.
I'm excited.
Let's just see where we go.
Yeah.
So Soph, if you didn't listen to the episode we did with Soph, it literally would have been a year ago. I reckon it was like Feb 2023. And Soph is the podcast studio owner, producer, all the things, podcast extraordinaire. And last year we did the episode because Soph heard me like ranting and raving on every episode about fat loss and just about all different things. And then Soph was like, I just want to come on and ask a bunch of questions as someone who is like a client and participant in the nutrition and training space, not a professional.
Yeah, not a podcast expert at all. It was just literally me being like, what's the go fat loss wise? And funnily enough, thanks to Eat Like Ruby, I have actually achieved a fat loss goal.
Woot woot.
Which was also not planned for the episode.
Can we celebrate this for a sec? No, you actually have had a very good year. I feel like you had a good year of like learning, trial, error, what works for you, what doesn't, few ups and downs, but that's it. That's progress still.
Yeah, totally.
And it's awesome.
Yeah.
Love it. So, Soph might jump in today with expert opinions on some of these topics or with questions about how they play into nutrition and training.
Yeah.
Let's just see where we go.
Whatever happens, let's go.
Let's see. So the first thing I want to talk about is, and I'm sure you can probably relate to this in different ways where you might have experienced this in a positive way or a negative way in different aspects of your life. But what I want to talk about is the question of what are the consequences if I do nothing? Oh. What are the consequences if I don't act? And the reason I want to say that is because I think a lot of people look at situations and whether it's consciously or subconsciously, the thoughts are like, what will happen if I do act? What could potentially go wrong? Where's the evidence that things will go right? And it's like before people commit to something and actually act on something, they need evidence that it will work. And I think, like I said, that can be very subconscious. People might not even realize they do that, but we do that with everything in life. Even if you think about like buying something in the shops that's like $3, you have a very quick internal process of like, okay, that's $3. Do I really need it? Can I afford $3? Yes, I can. Awesome. And obviously, if we think about buying something like a car or a house or whatever, you have a way bigger process like that. And that's more of a conscious process of going through like, how much actually is this? Can I afford this? Do I need it? Whatever. But we have that process with anything we do in life. Like that quick, whether it's quick or whether it's really slow, what's the cost? What's the trade-off? What's a potential benefit? What could go wrong? All of these things come into play. And I think we see this a lot with nutrition and training, but we see it with business where people are scared to act. And I think that question of what will be the consequences if I don't act is a cool thing for people to ask themselves. Do you have any thoughts?
Well, it's funny because while we work in completely different industries, I always relate to what you say so much because it's this exact same thing. Like in my world, marketing is the main thing I do, or podcast growth, audience growth in one way or another. And it's the same. It's the perfect question to ask because it's like, firstly, health and fitness goals take time. Like that's just non-negotiable. We already know that that's going to happen. And same for marketing outcomes. Like they take time. So yeah, I ask that question, or I put that question to a lot of people all the time. And it's just like, okay, so what have you tried that's worked? Nothing. well, okay, we don't want to do that again. So we know what's going to happen if you do nothing, if you don't make the commitment. And I just basically think that actually asking that question is the most powerful thing that you can do, because it just frees you up to actually make a choice as opposed to just be like on like a loop.
Yeah.
With whatever it is that you're referring to.
Yeah. It's so funny that you mentioned that, because I literally had in my notes, use podcast example.
Exactly, right?
And it's so funny. So what I mean here, guys, with this question, and I will use the podcast example in a second, is often if we think about something like joining a nutrition and training program, or like Soph said, she works with clients who want to start a podcast, people are very much like, what if I do it and it doesn't work? And I think we need to look at the question of, I'm currently not doing it. Is that working?
That's fucking epic. Exactly.
That really is it. And the reason I wanted to, or I had the note of use podcast example, is because what I see here is, to me, when I go through processes like this, I ask myself, instead of like, what if this doesn't work? I feel like that energy and that question of like, what if it doesn't work, is a big outsource of power.
Yes.
And I think you need to bring back your power and say, well, what can I do to optimize it working? And when I think about the podcast, if we think about, to be a little bit over a year ago now, I came to you and we talked about me starting a podcast. I had no evidence that was going to work. Like, you were excited and you're like, it's so good for business and all these things. But I had no evidence that investing in a podcast would have a payoff and a benefit in any way. You have to take a risk, but it's also a risk where you can then say, okay, yes, I am, air quote, taking a risk. What can I do in that time? It's not taking a risk like jumping off a cliff and hoping there's a soft landing at the bottom. It's taking a risk of being like, okay, cool, I am going to invest in this thing. And when I do invest in this thing, I'm going to plan the episodes. I'm going to talk to the expert that I have on hand about how I can make the most out of this. I'm going to show up and record every week. I'm going to pull content every week. I'm going to ask my audience what they want to hear about. What can I do to optimize that thing? So it's not about like, hopefully, we talk about hopefully so much on the podcast, and I think it comes in here where people are like, hopefully this works for me. It's like, bring it back. Like, no, what can I do to make it work? And I think that ties in with that first question of, what are the consequences if I do nothing? You have to really look at that and say, okay, well, if there is a risk, if I do something, aka I join a program or I get a coach, I start a podcast, whatever, I don't just join that thing and then hang around and hope for the best. I join that thing and then I fucking show up.
Exactly.
And I go and I take responsibility. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure you see exactly the same thing with podcasting and marketing as I see with nutrition and training.
Yeah, exactly. It is the same thing. And I think that the question you asked of like when you don't necessarily have the evidence of it working, it's about reversing and be like, we have evidence of what you're doing isn't working.
Yeah.
So just like framing it that way. And then the best thing you can do is try something else and like honor that decision-making like protocol that you have for yourself. You don't have to like jump off a cliff and be like, yes, like fingers crossed, this is how I do it. Like, research, see who you can follow along with that has proven tactics. Has it worked for other people before with health and fitness? It's like, if you're following a coach who like is sharing clients who aren't seeing progress or things like that, absolutely maybe don't invest in them.
There's a red flag.
Yeah. Let's I'm not going to make you do that. But if you are seeing like results being achieved through this practice, then maybe it's an opportunity to be like, okay, pretty likely that it could happen for me too.
Yeah. Like, I'm going to put myself in that same room.
Yeah.
If we think about that real question, that first question of what will be the consequences if I don't act, I think we have so many people, especially in the health and fitness, nutrition, training space, whatever, where they are unhappy. You're doing nothing. Maybe you've tried different things, like you might have joined this gym for a while, you've signed up to this program for a while, you tried this diet that your friend was doing, whatever. You've dabbled in different things and you've always felt like they haven't worked that well, you haven't had a lot of success, so you just sort of revert back to your comfort and eating your normal foods, living your normal life, whatever, and it's keeping you in a position that you're not happy with. So that's where we really want to look at that question. It's like, what are the consequences if I do nothing? There's a quote that I love that it's like, imagine yourself in 6 months if you tick all the boxes. Now imagine yourself if you don't. And I feel like that just ties in here, because it's like the consequences of doing nothing is being in the exact same position in 3 months' time, 6 months' time, whatever. So I think if you're someone who's looking at programs or coaches or whatever, or even if we look at the business side of things, podcasting, anything in life, if you're contemplating something, absolutely have your process and contemplate that thing and weigh up the pros and cons and whatever. But really consider that question of what will be the consequences if I do nothing, as opposed to what could go wrong if I do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
What could go wrong if you don't is really what we want to look at as well.
Yeah.
Any further notes on that one, Soph?
Well, if you were to fail the thing that you're doing, the risk you're taking, then I see it as a benefit also, because you're like, now I know that didn't work. What's next? Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? You're moving forward, because instead of being like stagnant, I've got no idea where to turn, no idea how to achieve this goal. Even if you try the thing you're thinking about and it doesn't work, you're like, cool, well, that one's not going to work. What's next? And it actually brings clarity.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say.
Yeah, for sure. And that's even one more thing I'll say on that, like you just prompted. I actually literally said in the fat loss phase, I think it was yesterday or the day before, we did a massive introductory third and all the girls were introducing themselves, and there was a few different common themes, but there was one common theme of people being like, I have done something dramatic like an 8-week challenge, restrictive diet, whatever, had a lot of success, but haven't been able to maintain it. And one thing I said to those girls is, often people in this position can see that as a bad thing and see themselves as a failure. While that's obviously not the best feeling to feel like you haven't continued with the success, if you have committed to something like an 8-week challenge or a restrictive diet or something really intense in the past and had even temporary success, there's already evidence there that you have a great work ethic, the ability to work hard, the ability to commit, the ability to be disciplined, to even if we look at the tangibles, like get up early, stick to a diet, go to training, all these things. So even though that specific program that you did or that diet that you did or whatever might not have been sustainable, so you couldn't do that shit forever, you still have wicked evidence. And in my opinion, you already have like a leg up, because you're like, I know I can do shit. I know I can act. So many people actually don't act at all. So many people don't do anything.
I couldn't agree more with you.
Even if you haven't kept that success going, there's proof there that you get up and act and do shit. And what I think like we need to look at there is when you find the right thing and then you take your work ethic and everything that we've already seen, pair it with the right thing that's actually enjoyable and going to work for you. That's a winning combo.
You're literally preaching to the goddamn choir. Like, I am that person. Like, in my health journey, particularly around nutrition, like fitness has always been quite easy for me because I enjoy it for mental health reasons.
Yeah, you know. Just like side note, Soph gets after it in the gym. You do.
Yeah, whatever. I'm no eat like Ruby and not going to claim that at all, but that means a lot. But anyway, the thing with health and like nutrition for me is like I have done a lot of different protocols in my own health journey, whether it's like, focusing on different things. It might be hormone health or it might be, I don't know, trying to eat organic and all the things. But when it came to like actually acknowledging my fat loss goal, I was like, it was exactly that process. I'm like, oh, I've got all these things weighing up that I want to prioritize in health. Right now I'm choosing fat loss. And I had done all these cleanses and I literally was like, well, I know I'll stick to it. Like I've done restrictive cleanses where you can only eat certain things and whatever. No problem. Like discipline, tick. And I literally thought that. And then it wasn't until I actually started tracking my food that I saw results. And I was like, how funny that,
funny that.
It's funny that, isn't it? Like, but yeah, I think it only helps you if you've tried different things. It shouldn't demotivate you or disempower you.
Yeah, so I absolutely acknowledge that it can be frustrating for people. I don't want to be naive to that. But I think if that's you and you're kind of beating yourself up of like, why can't you succeed, or why do I always come undone? Acknowledge the fact that there is a real positive there, that you're a fucking doer. And I have mad respect for doers. Anyone who gets up and does shit and takes action is like a big yes from me. And I think, like I said, that's the first piece of the puzzle. You've nailed it. We find the thing that you actually want to do and can do enjoyably for a long time, and happy days.
Literally.
So I think if you can resonate with that, just flip your mentality a little bit and be like, hang on, it's not all bad. I've actually got a really fucking cool skill here. And if I can put it to use in the right way.
Yeah. And don't shame yourself for not knowing. Like this again relates for business and health and fitness as well. It's like you've tried things based on your knowledge, and if it hasn't worked, chances are you've got a knowledge gap to fill. fill it, then go after it. And, you know, it's going to be a different scenario.
Yeah. I love that. You've got a knowledge gap to fill. Oh my God. I feel like so many people in Eat Like Ruby, that's the position they come in.
Exactly.
Is. And so many people do come into Eat Like Ruby with the work ethic, the determination, all the things. Like, that's what I preach. So we're not calling in the slackers. Like,
exactly.
The girls that come in, they want to go. And like, I love that term of there's a knowledge gap, because we know, I said on the podcast last week, my number one value is education. So to me, it's like, fill that knowledge gap. You're a bad bitch over here who's raring to go. I'm giving you the knowledge to go.
Literally.
Dream team.
Literally.
I love this. So the next point I wanted to bring up, and it kind of tied in, but then we went a bit off topic, is the convo or the topic of choice. And I think the reason I wanted to bring this up, I had on my vision board 2024 sort of goals thing for a while, the quote, I don't believe in blocks because we always have access to choice. And I heard that quote somewhere towards the end of last year, and I just thought, oh, that's so good, because I feel like this one is maybe a little bit more relatable to business people, like in your sense. You know, when we always hear, and I reckon coaches listening will hear, will resonate with like, I've just got a block. I've got a content block. I've got a
writer's block, bullshit. Yeah. Content block, bullshit.
Yeah, all these things. And that's so common. Again, if you run that story, like, I've just got this block. I love that quote of, I don't believe in blocks because we always have access to choice. I think people forget in that scenario, but in any scenario in life, even with nutrition and training, we do have access to choice.
Yeah. And I would say the feeling of feeling that block, absolutely experientially real thing. Mm-hmm. But like, for the person who's like, oh, I fucking do have a block though. And it's like, yeah, you are experiencing a block, but it's because you're not seeing, like, you're not giving yourself the choice for a different outcome or a different pathway, for sure.
Yeah. And I think having access to choice and really tapping into that, I think ties into that first point we made about we don't know what the outcome of something is going to be, but we know what we can do about it. We know what we can do to optimize that outcome and work towards that outcome. So if we think about choice and tying all this in together, I'm going to relate it to nutrition and training for all the girls listening. If you're someone who's considering doing a program or getting a coach or anything like that, doing the Eat Like Ruby fat loss phase, and you are having these thoughts of like, what if it doesn't work? Bring that back to, hang on a minute, I have access to choice. If I was to join this program, what can I choose to do every day to make it work, to optimize it working, to optimize my progress towards the outcome that I want? I think so often, again, that thought of what if it doesn't work is such a massive outsource of power of like, what if I join this thing and it just doesn't happen? Like, FYI, it's not just going to happen. It's not like, oh, you join the fat loss phase, boom, here's your fat loss. It's not like, oh, you got a podcast, oh, here's your new audience.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you step up and you commit and you do the thing, and that's the awesome first step. Like, you've literally stepped into the game, but you have to play. You have to be like, okay, now what am I choosing to do to make the most of this? And I think that's where the choice comes back. And I even when we think about the episode I did last week with the values, one of those values was empowerment. And it's for this reason, because I never want the girls in Eat Like Ruby or anyone to be in that energy. To me, I'm probably rambling, but to me, that's the energy of the hopefully thing. It's like, oh, I've joined the thing, hopefully it works. And again, if we think about empowerment, it's like, no, I've joined the thing. I've put myself in the room. Now, as Soph said, I'm filling the knowledge gap, and I'm choosing to put my best foot forward and do everything, like implement everything that I'm learning to move in the direction that I want to go. So it's not about hoping. It's not about what if it doesn't work. It's about, no, wait, hang on. When I wake up every day, how do I make this work? And I think it's the exact same, like we said, for the podcast. I had that energy, and I still do, towards the podcast. Like, how do we make this thing work?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and if it hasn't worked before, we know why. Just show up, do the thing, go with someone with a proven track record. Like, I cannot even stress that enough. Like, you know, if you've tried a fat loss phase and it didn't work, try one that works. You know, if you've launched a podcast and it flopped, come to somewhere that it works. Like,
come to One Track Studio.
or go and do some research, and like that's the block, the perceived block. It's like you're just looking at the things you've tried, and banging your head against the wall being like, why is it not working? Well, look at where it is working and go there. Like,
Yeah.
walk around the block.
Love
You know?
it.
Let's run that metaphor.
Pivot. Just a couple of side steps and off you
Sidestep.
go.
Hippity hop.
Shit, stuff just popping out on the board. All right, so that actually does bring me to my next point, and this is a big one. This is where people have to drop their wall, drop their ego, drop their shit.
Oh, I'm excited.
Yeah, you're gonna love this one. If we think about people having access to choice and people making the most of things and getting optimal progress and all those things because of choice, where are you labeling other people as, air quote, lucky, when in actual fact, they're just making different choices to you?
Oh, that's good.
Ooh, spicy. She's on one today. But seriously, we see this all the time. You know, we see fit people, lean people, whatever. Oh my God, she's so lucky she's in shape. We see someone with a big booming podcast. Oh my God, she's so lucky her podcast goes off. No one flew out the fucking womb in shape or with a big booming podcast.
If they did, I need to meet you. Come on my podcast. We got to talk. Yeah.
If you have a big booming podcast, it's because you've put the work into it. If you have an incredible physique, it's because you've put the work into it. Anyone with continued success in any field got there because of the choices that they continuously make. So if you're looking at people who are doing something that you want to be doing, are you looking at them and going, oh my God, that person's so, like I said, air quote, lucky because they're in shape, they're rich, they're famous, whatever it is that you want to be,
100%.
when really, for a long time, like on a big grand scale, but also on a daily, if not hourly basis, they are making different choices to you.
Absolutely.
100.
And it's like, are you comparing your first step or third step to someone's like absolute like 400th? Like,
Yeah.
Usually, yes.
Yeah.
Usually, yes.
That's a great point, and I feel like we've heard that a lot over the years. You know, people say like, don't compare your page 1 to someone's chapter 20 or
Yeah,
whatever.
the cliche,
like, there's
whatever it
always
is.
those cliche things.
Yeah.
But I think there's something really cool to look at there, and I actually had this on my list, but we're going to speak to it now because it makes so much sense. If you aren't in a position you want to be in, whatever it is with, let's talk about nutrition and training. So if you don't have the physique and the body composition that you want to have, and then you're looking at someone who does and sort of thinking, oh my God, they're so lucky, I wish I looked like them, whatever. Like Soph said, they could be 5 years in and you're on day 1. What do you have to do today to start moving towards that? Because I think people in their mind, I think everybody has this vision in their mind of where they're going to be in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. With nutrition and training, even with like retirement and finances and stuff, you know, people are like, oh, well, I'll retire and I'll have all these properties and I'll have a big investment portfolio and I have all these things. When are you buying the first property?
Yeah.
When are you buying the next one? When are you buying the next one? When are you seeing the financial planner? Like, when is this actually happening? I think in our mind, it's like, oh, you know, when I'm retired or in 20 years or whatever, I'll be in XYZ position. Again, the people in that position, you've got to reverse engineer it. What choices have they made? What are their daily actions that led them to be there? Because I think there's a massive disconnect where it's like, you have this vision in your mind, eventually I'm going to be here. Right now I'm here. These things are very far apart, but I'll keep doing the same shit every day. But eventually I'll get over here. It's like, connect the dots. What is the stepping stone? And I think if we think about it with nutrition and training, again, if you're looking at someone who's doing big lifts or they've got a wicked physique, or we're doing, we talk a lot in Eat Like Ruby about going into the gaining phase, and so many people are like, I'd love to get to the point of doing a gaining phase once I get my head around fat loss and nutrition and my habits and I back myself to do a gaining phase. Okay, if that's where you want to get to, what do you have to be doing now to get there? Because again, so many people put that thing on the pedestal of like, oh, that's where I'll be one day. But for now, like, I'll keep getting my Uber Eats and I won't track my food and I'll hit the snooze. I won't do my steps, all the things. Do you feel attacked because you hit the snooze this morning?
No, I don't feel attacked. I back my decision.
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
That's why you don't confide in Ruby if you ever miss a gym sesh. One gym sesh missed, and do I hear about it on a public forum?
When I got here, I was like, how was gym this morning? She's like, first time I didn't go. And now I've called her out publicly.
All good. All good. We're off a duck's back.
No, you've been killing it. But I think that really is common where people just have that in their head, like, oh, one day I'll get there. But in the meantime, I'll just keep doing this shit over here.
Yeah, it's like how convenient that you've got this dream so you can get the affirmation from everyone you're talking to. Like, oh yeah, I'm going to like get real serious about my health XYZ when this happens, or when my wedding day comes, or when I'm a mum, I'm going to be really healthy, or whatever the thing is. And then in that social situation, they're like, yeah, 100%. It's like, but you've just got like validation for fuck all, really, just then, didn't you?
Yeah.
Was that savage?
That was brilliant.
Yeah.
That was brilliant.
Watch that though, because that's like human nature. People like get validated in the moment. That will be something that will limit you from actually achieving what you want to achieve. Like I'm big on not saying what I'm going to do because I don't want to give myself any validation and to soothe the part of me that's actually going to take that step.
Yeah.
And that's been massive for me.
Yeah. And what we're talking about here, guys, even if we think about in the nutrition and training sense, is if you're sitting somewhere on a weekend and you're saying to all your friends like, oh my God, I'm going to join this gym in 2 weeks. It's opening up near my house and they do XYZ classes and rah, 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 and they're doing an 8-week challenge. I'm going to do the diet. I'm going to do the whole thing. I'm joining that. That's awesome. And your friend's like, oh my God, that's so fucking cool. Like, you're going to kill it, rah, rah, rah. Yet you're all sitting there eating cheese, drinking wine, getting up the next day, going out for brunch, not joining the gym on the Monday, still haven't joined on the Tuesday, all these things. But we got that big hit of encouragement and, like Soph said, validation at the time for something that we're air quotes going to do. I'm going to join the gym doesn't build your physique. Going to the gym consistently and choosing to go to the gym consistently is what builds the physique. And I think it's so important, and I think I had this on the list as well, to tap into that of like what we're talking about doing versus what we're actually doing.
Yeah. And if you want to set yourself up for success, like it's like take the steps and then get celebrated. Like I'm telling you, because if you get celebrated prematurely, you won't take the step. It'll take you way longer.
That's so true.
Yeah. Life hack.
Life hack. Love it. No, that's very cool. So I had written next on my list, choice is really just about taking responsibility.
Ooh, explain.
Right. And one thing that I was tapping into hugely towards the end of last year, right? Like in my mind, if you guys think I'm savage on the podcast, spend a day in my brain. But if one thing that I was literally saying to myself, just going through different shit with business and just different shit, was a simple quote of make it your fault. And I would say that to myself every day, make this your fault, Ruby. And what I mean here is if anything went like air quote wrong, like if something went wrong and we're like, okay, shit, what do we do about this? I would say to myself, make it your fault. How can this be your fault? And the reason I say that and what I'm talking about is I'll use a perfect example. The day I spoke about this on the podcast a few months ago, the day that Trainerize went down. So we use Trainerize for so many things in Eat Like Ruby. Massive program that we put a lot of money into. People obviously invest in Eat Like Ruby. Their money goes into it, all the things. It went down. And then obviously all the girls can't access so much of the shit we want them to access. And in that scenario, so easy for me to be like, fucking Trainerize, the amount we pay you, this shit shouldn't happen, rah, rah, rah. In situations like that is when I was literally saying to myself, how can you make this your fault? My fault in that situation was we do not have a backup when Trainerize goes down. That's my fault. That's not Trainerize's fault. That's not a client's fault. That's no one's fault. That's my fault for putting all my eggs in one basket. And the way I relate this to nutrition and training is when we see people that are like, oh, my calories got messed up or my day of eating got messed up because my boss made me stay back at work. For as long as it's your boss's fault, it's not your fault. Could it be your fault that you don't have a backup plan? You don't have a protein shake or something stashed in your drawer or a backup day or whatever that you refer to. Okay, this is what I do when I have to stay back at work.
Well said.
Yeah.
I think that is so powerful, and it sounds savage when you say make it your fault, but what like another way of saying it is like choose the more empowering thought here. Me, the marketer, like let's soften.
Yours is so positive and mine's like make it your fault.
No, but that works for people and it works for you, and sometimes you need a kick up the ass 100%. But what I'm just wanted to allude to is the fact that while it's your fault, it's more empowering because you get to take action. When it's out of your control, it is like,
yes,
I'm a lost puppy. Where do I go? Oh my God, everything sucks. And like
poor me.
Poor me. And that's really disempowering. Like if you can't do anything for yourself, that's disempowering.
Yes.
Making it your fault is empowering.
Yes, make it your fault is savage. I'm aware of that. And for me, it works. But really, I love the way you worded it as well. And I think what it comes down to, like Soph said, is it really is about taking back your power. Because for as long as it's like, you know, my boss kept me back at work, all my friends wanted to go to this restaurant for dinner. Like, there's so many ways that this can play out. My partner wants to get takeaway every weekend. Can you take back your power in that situation? In so many different ways. If we think about the partner wanting to get takeaway, like, guys, I literally live with the king of KFC. We know this. But there's so many things I do in that situation. I don't sit there and be like, hopefully Shaq doesn't get KFC this weekend because I'm trying to stick to my low calories, right? First of all, anytime I go into a fat loss phase, I say to Shaq, dude, I'm in a fat loss phase. Like, let's just scale it back a little bit. If we do want to eat out, if we want takeaway, whatever, give me some notice, let me plan for it, etc. I'll say to him, can we do more homemade stuff so he can do like fried chicken in the air fryer, chips, whatever, and I can do my version of it. In that scenario, like, that is making it your fault, because like if I did just sit on the couch and be like, oh my God, poor me, Shaq got KFC, and either like, poor me, I miss out, or poor me, I fucked up my diet because I did what he was doing. It's like it's Shaq's fault that I fucked up my diet. And I reckon so many people can relate to this, where it's your partner's fault. How can you bring it back and make it your fault? And what we mean by that is take action first, like be proactive, or have a look at situations. Have a look at the situations in your life that you are deeming it as other people's fault.
Break up with your partners.
Fuck them off, guys. I've done a month of marriage. It's
not worth it. I'd rather be skinny.
It's neither here nor there. I could definitely live without him.
Sorry.
I'm totally kidding. But if you look at any situation in your life where you are deeming it other people's fault, if we think about that scenario of like, my food gets messed up every time I have to stay back at work, if that's continuously happening, how do you intercept that and go, okay, what is the backup plan when I have to stay back at work?
I've got one, if you'd like to hear it. It's rice, thins and tuna. It's rice, thins and tuna. Doesn't go off. High protein,
that is
low
great.
cal.
So it just sits there and it's like, fuck, if I got stuck here, there's a meal here.
Literally.
Yes, I love this.
You're
That's
welcome.
so cool. Life hack, another life hack from Sophie. But I think everyone could look at, you know, anything like that where, oh, it's her fault, it's their fault. Even with, you know, my friends always want to do this and eat this food and go here and whatever. How can you intercept these things and take back your power and say, okay, how do I change this? So that if the same shit is resulting in you coming undone every day or every week or every month or whatever, so you're just stuck in this loop of not progressing how you want to progress, that's why I say make it your fault. Take responsibility of that thing instead of just being like, it's their fault. Because even if we tie in everything that I've just said, if you do have this goal in your mind that's like, one day I'm going to be over here, yet every fucking week my partner and my boss fuck up my diet, for as long as you're with that partner and you're at that job, that's going to be your story. And you're going to like keep in this loop, yet in your mind you're like, oh, eventually I'll get over here. What, when you're like single, unemployed, just locked in your house so no one gets in your way?
You'll be fighting some other demons, trust.
Like, it's not practical. So that's where we want to look and say, okay, if there's a big goal here, if I'm currently over here and there's the same shit that's stopping me from moving towards that, how do I take responsibility for that shit? That's really what it is.
Yeah, well said.
And this really brings me to the last thing I wanted to talk about today, and I feel like you'll have a big opinion on this one. You'll have something to say on this one.
Okay.
The concept of secondary gain.
Oh, you know I do. Yes.
I know you do. So what we're talking about here, guys, if you don't know, I feel like I've dabbled in this a little bit before, is where are you rather running a story or saying something that is like on the surface, kind of poor me and this thing gets in my way, but also for as long as that thing is present, it's actually really fucking convenient for you as well. And what I mean here is like, if you think about that, your partner wants to get KFC every Friday night, often the sort of conscious story we're putting out on the scenes is like, oh my God, poor me, I'm just trying to do my diet. My partner fucks it up every weekend. He just wants KFC. Yet every Friday night, you're like, oh yeah, okay, KFC.
Yeah.
Large popcorn, chicken and chips, thanks.
Absolutely.
And so that element of secondary gain is like, over here it's poor me, but also how convenient because they get to smash KFC every Friday night.
Yeah.
And even if we tied into that last point, oh, but it's not my fault.
Exactly.
It's not my fault.
So how's your fat loss phase going? Well, it would be better if Shaq wasn't having KFC.
Yeah, I mean, it's all his fault.
Yeah.
But also how convenient, because I'm still getting to eat KFC all the time.
Exactly.
And I've seen this as well. I might have said this on the podcast before. We see this with perfectionism, where it's like, I need my FitnessPal to line up perfectly, or I need my fucking Apple Watch to sync with my FitnessPal, or all these things. Well, how convenient. I got to sit on the couch for 3 hours while I tried to work that out. Oh, I didn't go to gym, but I was trying to work out my FitnessPal. Like, and so there's this big thing where it's like, oh, it's so inconvenient. I had to sit there and try and work that out. Well, how convenient, because you didn't have to get off your fucking ass.
100%. And honestly, to tag onto this whole concept of secondary gain, like I am a big believer in the reverse of that. So for as long as you're pursuing a fat loss goal, for example, or going hard at the gym and fitness, the secondary gain of that is you might not be going out and drinking every weekend and getting yourself into an anxious mess on a Sunday. You also might be having way more like in-depth conversations with people around you because you're actually going after something, you're a bit driven, you're connecting with people who have a goal. Then you also might be like, you know, getting outside more, and your mental health
so you're looking at positive secondary gain.
Once again, it's called like devil and the angel on the shoulder. But seriously, because I believe everything has it, like everything that's negative has a positive. The duality, dare we say. But it is just so true. And the same thing can be said like in business or in podcasting. Like, yeah, you're going after a podcast goal, but you're also getting fucking shitloads of content to post on your socials, and your business is probably going to be better because of that. And all of these things, like when you pick a goal and you choose the more empowering thought of like, okay, if this doesn't go well, then it's my fault. What's all the things that get to happen as a secondary gain of that if you do actually commit to just taking those steps? Like
just going for it.
Yeah. And you build your self-worth when you actually do what you say you're going to do as well.
100%. That's a mic drop. Like you build your self-worth when you say what you're going to do. And I feel like I butchered that, but you said it. I've said this on the podcast before of building that confidence. I feel like I'm trying to think what I've said it in relation to. I feel like I've said it in relation to eating out. Like when you set a plan for eating out. Yes, I have. Big deja vu coming in here. When we look at eating out, if you go into that day with a plan, and what I talk about is, you know, the plan doesn't have to be like air quote good or bad. It can be like, I'm going to go out and have garlic bread and pizza, but I'm not going to have wine. If you allow yourself to have that garlic bread and pizza, you follow through on that, you come home and you're like, I said I was going to do that and I fucking did it. As opposed to someone that's like, I'm going out, but I'm not allowed to have garlic bread, rah, rah, rah. Fuck it, I gave in, I did it. You come home, you're like, shit, I said I wasn't going to do that thing, and I did. So I think everything ties in so well here when we start to take responsibility, we access choice, we fill the knowledge gap, all those things. You start following through on the shit that you say you're going to do, and it is so empowering. Like you said, like it's awesome.
Yeah, hence why it's a value in Eat Like Ruby. Empowerment.
She gets it.
I do. I listen.
This gal gets it. And the last little thing that ties in with my negative concept of secondary gain, I guess, I'll keep being the Debbie Downer over here, is where are you married to your problems?
Yeah.
Where are you married to your shitty story? Oh my God, poor me, it's so hard for me because I work full time. Oh my God, it's so hard for me because I do night shift. Oh my God, it's so hard because... Guys, side note, what I was about to say, I still get, oh my God, it was so hard for me during COVID. Guys, it's 2024.
That one's run its course, hasn't it?
I think that one's done. I think if COVID is still in your story, it's time to just shut that book, pop that on the shelf, chuck it in the fire, whatever you want. That one, we're not opening that book again. But I see this all the time where people are, like I said, married to their problem and really married to their story of like, you know, I always struggle with getting up early. Well, if you fucking say you always struggle with getting up early, of course, every morning you wake up, you're like, oh my God, this is where I struggle. Well, because that's all you're telling people. That's 100%. What you're telling yourself. Like, where are you married to this identity of, I'm not a morning person. I don't, you know, I can't, I've said this before, like, I can't not have a wine at night. I can't not get a coffee. I can't not have dessert. Where are you married to that identity and therefore that problem? And then when someone presents like a meal plan to you, let's say we presented a meal plan with no dessert on it. Oh my God, but like I can't not have dessert. Okay. It's like you're so like attached to that identity, and that does come into that secondary gain thing because it's like, for as long as I'm a person that has to have dessert, oh, well, I got a meal plan on it, didn't have dessert, so I couldn't stick to the meal plan.
I would argue that everyone is married to every single one of their problems, like including you, including me, like, because you would not be in a situation if you were not benefiting from it on some sort of subconscious body level at all. Like, otherwise you would change it. So you're always benefiting, whether it's just like self-soothing because you've got an excuse of why you're not where you want to be, or anything underlying, that's always why you're there. So just know that. And then take some inventory. It's a bit of seriously.
Yes, and I love the take inventory thing, because that was one thing I was going to say as well. I was going to say take audit, but inventory, however you want to do it.
Whichever.
Really, and this is where we will wrap it up, I promise, but really look at all of this shit we've said, because I think it's so common for people to just be like dabbling in this every day and sort of clinging, like being married to the problem, running the story over here. Hopefully this works out. I don't have a lot of choice. I'm still talking about COVID. All of these things. And even when we think about if that's quite normal to you, and then you catch up with your friends and that's all everyone's talking about. And then, you know, you go in the work tea room and that's all everyone's talking about. And at work, it's all everyone's talking about. And you catch up with the mums from school and everyone's crapping on about the same stuff. It's like, of course you're going to be clinging to those things, and that's going to be your story. And I think for so many people, it is just air quote normal. It's like, oh, this is what we talk about.
Yeah, the secondary gain is belonging.
Yeah.
Which is a human need. So don't shame yourself for having that, but take inventory and then change it.
Yeah, and what I mean here is just have a look and think like, am I actually just running these stories and saying the same things, whinging about the same problems, having the same convos, whatever, with the same people in the same situations over and over again? Can I actually just get up and walk away? Mm-hmm. If I'm sitting there with a bunch of people who want to start bitching about, oh my God, it's so hard to stick to a diet. It's, you know, it's so common if you sit there with your friends and everyone's like, oh, it's so hard to diet on the weekend. Could you actually just get up and walk away? Yeah. Or could you just be like, it's actually not that hard for me, or whatever. Like, I think it's so common. Like you said, we want to belong. We don't want to be the weirdo that's walked off or even has a different opinion or whatever. So I think it's common for people to just entertain the convo and be like, oh yeah, it is hard. It's like, are you just normalizing this stuff and not realizing that that's actually keeping you quite stuck? Mm-hmm. I think is what I wanted to say.
Yeah, I think that's so true.
Yeah. Like, the main thing I wanted to get across here, guys, is obviously start of the year, a lot of people are joining new programs, doing new things, trying new things, which is so cool. And I think it's just really important to catch yourself. I'd say if nothing else, if you take nothing else from this episode, catch yourself in the story that you have and putting that story out there. Like, if you've joined a new program, we did a big introductory third. I think I said this before in the fat loss phase. If your go-to is to jump on something like that and go, I always struggle with this. I always come undone with that. It's like, can we intercept that story a little bit and even just start changing the wording? I'm here to work on my weekends. I'm here to work on my consistency, my training, whatever. And even on that post, when I made that post for all the girls, and now it's got like over 100 comments on it. It just went off. But I said, like, tell us who you are, what you do, rah, rah, rah. And I said, and tell us something you're good at. And the reason I'm asking you guys to do this is because I think it is so common to jump into things like this and tell us everything you've struggled with before, which you can absolutely do. We're here to help. That's part of being there. But also tell me something you're great at. And people, you know, people would say like, I do struggle with XYZ, but I'm great at getting up early and going to the gym. But I'm great at planning my days in advance. But I'm great at hitting protein. And I think it's just so cool to be aware of those things and really ask yourself, like, if Rubes hadn't have prompted me to say that, would I have just jumped in and started rattling off what I'm great at? Or would I have been like, I'm bad at this, I struggle with this, rah, rah, rah? Because I think it's so common for us to cling to that stuff.
Absolutely.
Intercept it. That's what that was.
Yeah, intercept, take inventory, intercept.
Yeah.
The double I.
I do hand gestures now, guys.
Yeah, watch on video. You got to do it.
Watch on YouTube. So, guys, we're going to wrap it up there. I hope you took something from that. I'm going to be back next week with Coach Shaq. I'm not leaving him apart besides what we...
I tried to break him up. Didn't work. All right. Cop that from Shaq tomorrow.
So, Shaq will be here. We're going to do an episode where we talk all about my own personal nutrition, training, goals, where I'm at, plans, everything for the year. I think it'd be cool to break down. And we're also going to do the same with his because he's getting closer to his triathlon, which is very cool. And then we've got lots of other exciting episodes planned. I'm actually getting my mum back on the pod.
Ooh.
Everybody loved the episode with mum. OGs, remember, mum came on around April, May last year, and she was dabbling in the idea of a gaining phase. She's done the gaining phase.
Really?
And she's now, so she'll be turning 60 in June. And that was always her thing because she was about a year and a half away from that when she first came on. She's like, I'd love to do a gaining phase. So she's done the gaining phase. She's about to do her fat loss phase. She's in the Eat Like Ruby fat loss phase.
Wow.
Doing a shred for her 60th. Like,
Go off.
can we just give a moment for mum? So I'm going to get her in to talk about the gaining phase, what it was like, all the things, especially I think very interesting for just a different age bracket, different demographic to hear, and then talk about her fat loss in the lead up to the 60th.
Wow.
So that's going to come in the next few weeks, but there's plenty more to come. So make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube. Make sure you're following on Instagram, and we will be back next week. Thank you, Soph.
Thank you. Bye.